Hey, Michael with X-Force PC. Wanted to give you an idea of the speeds you should expect from the processors on the Comet system. So now that the processor line has been filled out, let's go over the various options. Now right here I have a pink line drawn, and the processors down here are 10 core versus 8 core. Now for gaming and X-Plane and Microsoft Flight Sim, it really doesn't matter, at least at this point, if you have 8 versus 10 cores. In fact, in some cases it might be better if you had 8 because you don't produce as much heat. But anyway, let's go over these. First we have the 10700, and that's a 65 watt processor. And you'll notice the 10900 is also a 65 watt processor, and they don't have the letter K there at the end. The letter K means that it's an unlocked processor and it can be overclocked. And it also has a higher TDP, or thermal design profile, I think is what that stands for. These are in watts. So this is how many watts the processor is supposed to draw. It goes higher than that, but these are the numbers that are arbitrarily put out by Intel. Now, if you come over, you'll notice these are the base frequencies. So this is sort of the minimum performance you would expect, even in bad conditions. And then this is the max turbo frequency that you would see in ideal conditions. And then lastly, I have what type of cooling we're using, because we do give you choices on that. And way over here, we have the real world sustained speed. And so this is the speed you should expect to see in one of our systems with this chip. So let's go into a little more detail. The 10700 is a 65 watt chip, and it has a power limit on it, which is a long-term power limit, meaning after a certain amount of time, which is pretty short, like, I don't know, 15 or 20 seconds, I'll let you run at this higher, power draw for a short amount of time, but then after that, we got to drop you down because you're a 65 watt processor, and the little cooler that we put in the box with the processor, the 10700, can't handle this much wattage for that long. But we don't use that little cooler that comes in the box. We use a tower cooler, and what that allows us to do is tell the BIOS, hey, remove that limitation. Allow that long-term power limit to go on forever. Whatever that number is, it can go on forever. You don't have to drop back down. Now with that limit in place, we see this processor drop as low as about 3.3, 3.4 gigahertz. But with that power limit removed, it stays up at that higher speed, which is around 4.6 gigahertz all the time, even with all the cores loaded. Whereas again, if you own a conventional BIOS, conventional system, using the included cooler, you'd get this 4.6 gigahertz for about 15, 20 seconds, and then you would see that speed start to drop until it got down into about the mid to low threes. So I did want to mention that. Now on the 10700K, we've got more headroom. We've got 95 watts to work with, so we've got a higher base frequency and a higher max turbo frequency. These are, again, theoretical numbers, but this cooler on air, we get about 4.7 gigahertz. So if you're stepping up to the 10700K and you're doing it on air, you're really only getting about 0.1 gigahertz more. Now the 10700K, same chip, same everything, but on water, we're able to allow more power to go to the chip. We tell the BIOS, we're on a water cooler, you can send more power for a longer period of time. We're able to maintain 5 gigahertz on an all-core load, and this is what you would get, in X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Sim. The 10900, that's a 10-core chip, also with a 65 watt limitation. So it's very similar to the 10700. It comes with the same cooler, same wattage limitations, but its base frequency is a little bit lower at 2.8 because you have more cores, but the same amount of power, you're going to have to lower your base clock. Max turbo 5.2. Same thing on this chip. We're not using the boxed cooler, we're using a tower cooler. So we're able to tell the BIOS, maintain that long-term power limit. Don't stop it at a certain amount of time. Make it infinite. Always allow it to send the most amount of power allowable to this chip. And therefore, we're able to maintain between 4.6 and 4.8 gigahertz when under an all-core load or gaming or X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Sim. Whereas using the boxed cooler, if you threw an all-core load at it, meaning your 100% load on the chip, after a short period of time, less than 30 seconds, you're down in the mid 3 gigahertz range on that chip. The 10850K is a 95 watt chip, and it's unlocked. And you see it's got a higher base frequency and the same max turbo frequency. We're only running that on water because when you get up to 10 cores and you get up to these higher frequencies, you really need water cooling. And so we're seeing about 5.1 with an all-core 100% load, or while doing X-Plane, or while doing Microsoft Flight Sim, about 5.1 gigahertz. And then lastly, we have the 10900K, which has been very hard to obtain. I have only managed to purchase about 7 of these total, maybe. They're forever out of stock, or people are asking ridiculous prices for them. But again, it's 95 watts, and it's only 0.1 gigahertz faster than the i9 10850K. And therefore, we get about 0.1 gigahertz more. We get 5.2 instead of 5.1. I didn't mention, but yeah, these are i7s, and these are i9s down here with the 10 core. So hopefully that helps make a little sense out of this. If you're just wanting to boil it down to what do I care about, it's probably this last column here. When you run the 10700K on air, you get 4.6. When you run the 10700 on air, you get 4.6. 10700K on air, you get about 4.7. 10700K on water, 5 gigahertz. This is probably your best bargain. The 10900, the i9 10900, you get about 4.6 to 4.8 on a tower air cooler. The 10850K, you get about 5.1 on water, and the 10900K, you get about 5.2 on water. So hopefully that helps you understand what you should expect when you're looking at these chips and that drop-down list and trying to decide, which one makes sense for you.